Hey guys, I want to talk about this meme build, and by meme I mean this build has bad clear speed, it has bad single target, it is expensive, and it's not practical. So this is just like for fun basically. And the build is built around Duskblight boots, which is an upgraded version of Duskstove. Now I'm gonna talk about the skill and the mechanics. So it has some things where people keep misunderstanding how exactly it works, so make sure you listen before you save it or use that or that. So let me explain the skill. The skill is called Stalking Pistol, and it is on kill. So that's already one bad thing. On kill things are bad because you can't really do single target well with that. So okay, fine. Maybe for the clear speed then. So the skill works almost exactly like Volatile Dead, but it is Chaos. Actually, let me read the skill description first. A corpse near that targeted location explodes, dealing damage in a small area and creating an orb which moves towards nearby enemies before dealing spell damage in larger area. So here's what people misunderstand. The explosion that 9% of corpse maximum life does not get carried with the ball. You only do that damage when the corpse explodes, not with the ball. So you can't really scale this like into red tail maps because with the corpse life, unless enemies would be standing right on top of corpses that explode while creating these balls. If we compare Volatile Dead and this Chaos Volatile Dead, so Volatile Dead, as you can see, the fire damage goes to 760 flat, while this one goes only to 613 Chaos damage. It has lower base damage, it has same base crit chance, it does have higher base effective damage added compared to Volatile Dead, which is 120%, while this one has 140%. It does have 2-second cooldown, another very bad thing. 2-second cooldown, and the only way to reduce that is with CDR belt, since boots are already taken. Now also Volatile Dead, you can create up to 60 orbs, but it also consumes up to 3 corpses to create 3 balls. And you can create even more with a single cast using Spell Cascade and Spell Echo. Now this thing can also benefit from Spell Cascade. In fact, I even have Awakened Spell Cascade just to be able to create more balls. But it has a cooldown and you can't use like Spell Echo, so no matter what you're gonna be limited to fewer balls, and it has lower base damage. And here's damage is a bit harder to scale with hit damage than Elemental. So it already has worse damage, worse execution, worse cooldown. The only benefit is that it can refresh itself, and that's the main thing of this build. To basically be trigger it once and then just the balls appear, they fly to enemies, they kill enemies, they refresh themselves, they create new balls, and those balls keep moving towards the next enemy and so on and on. But in practice it doesn't really work that well. There are always times when, especially in high tier maps, when we can't one-shot enemies and we don't create anything, and other times some enemies just don't leave corpses, like in Ritual we don't leave corpses. I believe Paranos as well. Like Legion, while it is stuck, it does not leave corpses as well. So there are lots of cases where it will not refresh itself. Another thing is that sometimes enemy packs are just way too far between. The gap is way too big and we just don't see the further enemies. So in the end, they just don't really work. Also, the balls move slow, but you don't want them to move too fast, because if they move too fast, it has cooldown, like I said, 2-second cooldown. In my case, it has 1.68 second cooldown. So if they move too fast to enemies and explode and kill it, they're not gonna refresh themselves. So you want them to be slow enough, but not too slow, so that, like, if they are too slow, it feels bad and clunky. Obviously, if it's too fast, they rush to other enemies and kill them too fast, and they won't refresh themselves. And people don't want to use a skill just like for fun, they want it to be viable. And I think GG made a big mistake making this skill so weak. And by the way, you can only support with 4 support gems, while like others like Volatile Dead you could support with 5, even 6 supports. I don't understand why GG did this. It has such a bad drawbacks, and it doesn't even Visually it looks amazing. That's a sad part. Visually it looks amazing and I want to play with it, I want to see it more often, but it's just not practical waiting for those balls to chase enemies and slowly explode and create themselves. You just you just don't want to do that in maps. So I'm not actually sure what's the point of these boots. If the cooldown was 1 second, they would work so much better. If the base damage was higher as well, it would be so much easier to scale. Right now I am using level 5 Awaken added here's damage inside the boots to boost their base damage. I also got Awaken Spell Cascade to be able to create more balls, but even normal Spell Cascade would work, so if you want to experiment with those boots, you can just use normal Spell Cascade. But you do need corpses. You only require 1 kill, but you do require more corpses to create more balls. So I am carrying Worm Flask and Desecrate to create corpses and then Worm Flask, but it doesn't do enough damage for single target. There's no chance. I don't have proper items, this is only level 80, so I could get more damage, but like even at this point I can hardly clear yellow tier maps, and I already took basically almost all the damage nodes from the best of 3. Obviously items can always be improved, but that's the reason why should I even want to invest more into build that hardly performs in yellow tier maps at this kind of investment. By the way, in boots, like I said, I have Awaken added here's damage, Awaken Spell Cascade, Control Destruction, and Void Manipulation. Since this is a skill from an item, you cannot boost its level. So getting like +3 to here's or in general +5 to skill levels is not gonna do anything. Unless for single target, obviously. So I just got a generic stuff with spell, crit chance, and crit multi basically. Also, I was trying to get a fire burst just for nothing. It's just like a different idea, but and single target I decided to use Hex Blast because there's nothing else to use with Here's hit skills. This is a crit build, so I can't really scale like Blight or Essence Drain or something like that with crit. So Hex Blast, and Hex Blast, like normally you would have to manually curse enemies before using Hex Blast, but I just slapped on Hex Blast just to see the build was around the boots, not really single target, and I knew that is gonna suck, at least for single target, so I was not too worried about the single target, but the Hex Blast, just like a filler. The main focus are boots and those balls. Now I also got Divergent Berserker with the Chainbreaker, so Awaken Spell Cascade, Divergent Berserker, that's already what, over 10x, right? Just to begin the build, basically. Just to squeeze out more damage, but you could like use Righteous Fire with Agnostic and Mind Over Matter maybe. For auras I'm using Skitterbots, Zealotry, which boosts spell damage, and Aspect of the Cat. And I am using Firewall's Fur to generate power charges, and the reason, because like I said, I wasn't planning on like actively playing and just basically chasing balls, so I couldn't get like power charges on crit easily, so that's why Firewall Force just automatically generates maximum power charges and frenzy charges, and also frenzy charges because it's also power charges because this is Occultist. You get a lot of EOE and damage from the forbidden power. By the way, initially I don't have Uberlap done. I got triggered because I kept dying. I was also testing with the Profane Bloom and the explosions, and I do have course on Hit Ring, the Spear on Hit Ring, but that's another thing. You want those balls to be able to one-shot enemies, and if they do that, they don't trigger Profane Bloom because it requires enemies to be cursed, so it doesn't trigger that. So I even have Berserker's reduce rage loss enchantment on the helmet, and I did craft this helmet. I was trying to get nearby enemies have -9 chaos res, but the flat chaos damage and physical damage also kind of works, so I just did not want to over invest into this meme build, so that's what I end up with. Cooldown and recovery speed belt is basically a must. Amulet also nothing too special, crit multiplier and basically cap my resistances. There are other ways to increase the damage. You could go like low life and all sorts of different ways, but just getting the damage is not the only issue. Like, even if you compare it to Volatile Dead is just so much stronger than this skill, and you can spam Volatile Dead. So no matter what you do, it's not gonna be practical. That's my main issue with this skill. And I really hope that GG is gonna buff this skill because it looks so amazing and I wanna play it more, and it just when it works it's just beautiful. But when it doesn't, you just don't wanna play it. So oh, one more thing I forgot. Like I said, you do need kills for this to proc and corpses, and I'm sure someone is gonna mention that why don't you just use the worm talisman? And this is the worm talisman that you're probably thinking about. This no longer works, and it hasn't worked since I don't know, a year ago or so, maybe even more, or maybe even 3 years. Because so if you haven't played Talisman, enemies would actually run and pick up the Talisman from the ground, and based on the Talisman, they would do special effects. And this Talisman would throw worms when they get damaged, and those worms you could kill and proc on kill effect. So kind of the only way to still use it is with the worm flask. And that's what I have, but it really doesn't do enough damage for a single target. It's not even worth trying to scale it. If you get enough damage for a single target, then it would also work better for clearing, but just not really worth it. If you got some like improvements, maybe you have played with it, let me know in the comments below. And for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.